Well, good evening again. If I can have everyone's attention, we are so glad again that you have come out to be with us. Thankful for a good meal. I hadn't eaten yet, but it looks good. Amen. And hopefully you have finished. And just want to we're about to get started. There's tea, water, that kind of thing. But I'd encourage you don't go ahead and throw stuff away unless it's just totally in your way. You can raise your hand and I'll come get it. I don't want you to miss what's being said, okay? And so your plates and trays and all that kind of stuff, unless they're just in your way, lock in on what's being said, okay? We think we've got, we know we've got two experts in their field that can come and give us great information tonight, and we're just so glad for that. You know, the Lord has gifted each of us, and when we think about scams, obviously that's financially that we're talking. And I'm just reminded of what Scripture says. You know, you've been blessed in every way to be generous in every way. We're called to be good stewards, and you want to be a good steward. And these scammers play on your kindness. They play on your generosity. They play on your desire to not do something wrong. You don't want to be late on a bill. They play on all of those things. But listen, I don't want to discourage you. Your generous heart and your kind heart and your desire to honor the Lord with what you do and what you do with your money, those are good things. Amen. And so just this is not we want to help in some capacity. I shared about this on Wednesday nights when we kind of announced this. Like we know as a church staff, this has impacted several of you within our church family. You've either gotten scammed or almost gotten scammed, and we want to try to give you as best we can the tools to be able to know what you're dealing with and to know how to respond. So we're excited. We want to first. I'm just going to introduce both of them at the same time, and then when Laura's finished, Detective Sinowetski is going to come up. But Laura Powell is one of ours. She's a Longview Heights member, and she works at First Choice Bank. And Laura currently serves on our budget and finance ministry team here, so she is home folk. And so Laura is going to come and going to share with us from her perspective with the bank. So Laura, would you come and share?
Good evening, everyone. I am Laura Powell. I'm a member here at Longview, and I'm the branch manager at First Choice Bank. I've been in banking for 8 years now, and one of the big components of my job has been helping customers deal with scams. So by a raise of hands, can you tell me who in here knows somebody who has lost money to a scam? Anybody? Oh, okay, so it's a lot of people. What about who has gotten unwanted calls and text messages maybe in the last week? Yeah, so this is very prevalent, okay? And we're going to talk about some of the common tactics that scammers use to try to manipulate us and some of the red flags that we can use to spot them and prevent a loss. Is this thing on? Okay. So what do I mean by scams? I'm not referring to hacking per se, like where somebody electronically breaks into a website, or if your card number was just mysteriously compromised and there was a charge. I am referring to a deceptive scheme that's designed to trick you into giving away money or personal information. So that's deception and trickery on the scammer's part, and that also means participation on our part. And that's what makes it a scam. That is the part that is sickening and makes people come into my office and say, I feel so stupid. I feel sick to my stomach because I gave away, this much money or this kind of personal information. So that's what I mean by scam in this instance. But that doesn't make you the bad person here, okay? I want to be clear on that. If this has happened to you, you're a victim. You're not the criminal. The scammer is the criminal. But who can get scammed? Is this even working, or do I just need to point at you? Okay, it's working. So there's a scam for everyone, okay? You're not exempt from scams if you just don't do online banking or if you don't use the internet, or scams are not only targeted at senior adults. There is some form of scam for everyone, and we all have some kind of vulnerabilities just because we're people. And I know this because the other day I actually gave $5 to someone that I believe was a scammer. And I feel like I should know better. I've been preparing for this presentation. What was I thinking? Well, I wasn't thinking. Okay, I had social pressure in the moment of somebody in person looking at me, and there was this idea that she was disabled and it was a charity, and every second that I wasn't doing something was a moment I felt like she might feel like I was judging her, so I just gave her $5. And while that might not seem like much of a loss, I don't like that because I funded something criminal, and I made it easier for the next person to get scammed by writing my donation on a piece of paper. So all that to say, anybody can get scammed, okay? It does not mean you're dumb. It does not mean you're not educated. It can happen, but this is what we want to prevent. Okay, so one of the tactics that they employ often is trying to create strong emotion in us, okay? This could be something like fear. Like you get a phone call that says you have a family member that's in the hospital or maybe under threat of being arrested. It might be their actual voice on the phone because voices can be copied. And then you're scared, you're panicked, and you're no longer thinking clearly. They could try to produce in you a good emotion. It could be something exciting, like you've won this $1 million sweepstakes and they've already sent you your first check. Or maybe you have just this really strong connection with somebody that you've been talking to online. They really understand you, and it's this feeling of companionship, romance, whatever it is. Strong emotions get us less thinking and more reacting and easier to manipulate. Creating a sense of urgency is something scammers will also commonly do. This goes hand in hand with the strong emotion that they want to create. So this just puts you in a position, again, of reacting rather than thinking. It could be something like, the letter says, or the phone call, you must pay this outstanding fee now, or else you're going to get arrested, or else you're going to be charged thousands and thousands of dollars as opposed to this small amount. It could be a sense of urgency, like you get a pop-up and it's red and it says warning, viruses are on your computer, and you have this feeling of I need to take care of this immediately. Or a warranty opportunity, hurry, act now, this expires within 24 hours. Not everything with a deadline is a scam, and not every urgent situation is a scam, but when something is urgent, when you do feel backed into a corner and have to make a speedy decision, that should set off an alarm bell in your mind to get your brain to a state of thinking instead of reacting. And I would recommend that too, even for just everyday American marketing, Get down quick to the dealership, act now, You don't have to. You don't have to. So another red flag is if a scenario is too good to be true. This thing is really giving me an issue. Can you go back? Okay, to that little picture. All right, so this could be something like you get a letter in the mail that says, you've won the lottery. Well, you probably haven't. Okay, not that it's impossible to win the lottery, but let's act like you didn't until it can be proven that you did. You might have an opportunity for an investment, maybe in cryptocurrency, that promises 100% returns guaranteed at no risk to you. Well, that's too good to be true. Okay, 100% returns guaranteed. Or maybe, to give it to you straight, sir, if you're collecting Social Security and the young lady you're speaking with online is 25, it's a guy, okay? Not to say that women can't be scammers, but it's fake. And I don't say that to shame anybody, but this is what we're dealing with. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is, okay? And just to show you an example, and you have some examples of this in your packets. So here's a Facebook profile. Her name's Jessica. All the information is very small, but she works for Doctors Without Borders, which is a humanitarian organization. She works in Ethiopia, helping the orphans. And maybe you've been talking to her, maybe in this case you're a gentleman, and you've been talking with her for a few months. She's a Christian. She's from the Memphis metro area. She may have sent you pictures of her in Memphis. And she needs to get to the next city to help the orphans, but she can't because Ethiopia has her account locked down. They won't take her American money, but she has to pay the taxes to go to the next city, and she needs your help. And she guides you to maybe send her to help her purchase cryptocurrency, for example, to get to the next city. This is actually I've heard this type of scenario multiple times. That's just an example of something. And by the way, this profile, I made this profile in about 30 seconds with AI. I just told it what I wanted, and it made this profile. So it's that easy. Well, anyway, this is Jessica. And each one of them is 20, 30 more Jessicas, Roberts, Stewarts, Phils, whoever. But this is the reality of it. And they play the long game. They can carry these relationships on for months. So if you know somebody that has that kind of online friendship, they may call it, relationship, whatever, I would probe, maybe ask some questions, because they can really get wrapped up in your mind and your emotions over a long period of time. And I know it can seem so real after all that time, but this is what we're dealing with. And just please never give money or personal information to somebody that you're talking to online. Not everyone is who they say they are. Secrecy, this is another tactic and red flag. Scammers want to do is keep you isolated. They would rather you not call someone to verify. They'd rather you not hang up the phone and call a family member or talk to your bank. They will tell you, if it's the government agency claiming that you owe something, they're going to say, keep this confidential. They say confidential, or don't tell your bank. They'll be suspicious. They're going to want to report you to the IRS. The IRS is going to want to tax you. Keep me on the phone. They'll often keep you on the phone, sometimes for hours, and tell you not to tell anyone. And that means that people that care about you or maybe know better don't have the opportunity to advise you on what's going on. So if you are speaking with somebody, you think it's the government, or if somebody, an agent on the phone, supposedly is helping you get a refund for something, and you say, well, let me call a different number and just verify this, or let me, I think I'm getting a scam call right now, actually. Let me call my bank and run this by them. And if they give you pushback on that, that's weird, and you're dealing with a scam, because no legitimate organization is going to have a problem with you wanting to verify, especially this day and age. So secrecy is a red flag and a tactic. And then another red flag is unusual payment methods. So if you are asked to do a wire transfer to support a charity, I'd be very skeptical of that. Or if you're asked to pay for anything official with cryptocurrency, that's weird. And of course, if somebody says the word gift card, the conversation should be over, because nothing legitimate should be paid for with gift cards. This is very common. Not everybody knows this, but if somebody tells you, you need to cover this fine, you need to send us back money, we refunded you too much, we need you to buy a gift card for whatever reason, that is a scam. So watch out for yourselves and your friends on that one. And then something to watch for is requesting personal information. So, for example, if you think you're on the phone with Amazon or Microsoft, they do not need to know your social security number. They don't need to know your bank account number to issue you a refund, supposedly. Your bank will never call you asking for your social, asking for your online banking credentials. Nobody should have your online banking credentials, especially your password. So be very wary anytime somebody asks for any of those things. Even if you really do have something you're working on legitimate with your doctor or a job application, whatever, I still want some little alarm to be going off in your head before you give out something like your social, to say, let me make sure this really, really, really is who I think it is. And of course, if you're talking to somebody online, none of that should be given out. Okay, request to send some of the money back. I see this all the time. If anybody ever tells you to deposit a check, but send them some of the money back, that's going to be a scam. You might get a job offer. Some people are looking to do some work from home stuff, and they send you a check before you've even done any work, which is weird. And they say, well, send us some money back. Deposit this check, send us $1,000 back to cover the equipment cost, but you get to keep $3,000. Well, that's a bad check, and it's going to come back, and if you spent it, now you owe the bank. So that's a scam. Or if they say, this is your first installment of your sweepstakes winnings, this is your first installment of your lottery winnings, go ahead and deposit the check. We're going to send you more, but here you go. We're going to go ahead and give you $10,000, but we need to send $5,000, $1,000, whatever, back to cover taxes, fees. That's a scam, okay? So be very wary of asking to send money back. Another common one is being told that, yeah, it's just a picture for us. Another common one is being told that, oh, we're issuing you a refund, and they say, oh, we accidentally refunded you $5,000 instead of $50,000. We need you to send, the excess back, and that's a scam. And they may even show, if you're on a computer, they may show you a picture of your bank account and do something to make it look like they put that money in there. And so you think, oh, I have too much money and I'm a good Christian person. I don't want to keep something that doesn't belong to me. That is a scam. And, okay, so another big red flag is access to your device. This means they might have you download, like if your computer is locked up because of a virus, for example, like you get something like this. Oh, your computer's locked. There's a virus. You need to call this number. Well, the person on the phone may offer to help you, and they may be cool, calm, and collected. They may not be yelling at you saying, oh my gosh, hurry, get this off your computer right now. But they may say, okay, we're going to have you download our secure app that will allow me to help you with this problem. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to download an app on your phone. You don't want to go to the website they tell you and then perhaps click a button to allow any kind of access, because that means they can see everything that's on your phone. They can see everything that's on your screen. And if at any point they tell you to log into your online banking, that's a red flag. Because as you type in your password, even if it's all dots, they can see everything you're typing in. So you don't want to give any kind of access to your device in the process of, if you get that far in the conversation. But they may do that to supposedly help you get rid of a virus, or it could be under the guise of helping you get a refund. They may say, oh, we need to help you get this refund. You didn't make this charge on your Amazon account. Well, we can help you with that. So do not let someone have access to your phone, computer, tablet, whatever it is. Another common red flag, I would say, is misspellings and bad grammar. Or anytime the English is weird, and as technology gets better, this is not always going to be the case. Not every scam is going to have bad grammar necessarily, and not every typo is indicative of a scam, because I make typos sometimes. But it is, let me go back one. I don't know how I did that. Okay. But it's a clue. If you see misspellings, bad grammar, or you get a letter supposedly from the Mississippi Department of Revenue, but it kind of sounds like English is not their first language, that is a clue to stop and look for other things that might be going on there. That's a red flag. And especially, like in this example, you want to pay attention to website addresses. Unfortunately, not every time you Google something, the very first result might not really be what you're looking for. And so if you look at the actual .com at the top, sometimes that'll tell you you're not, this is paypal.com. I know the screen says PayPal, it's going to say that, but the .com part is misspelled, and that's the same thing with email addresses. If you get emails, it'll say it's from Laura Powell, but if you look at the blah, blah, blah at firstchoice.bank or at, yahoo.com, you definitely want to make sure all of that looks good. That can be a big clue, and that's the case on some of our examples in the handouts. And just anything out of the ordinary. If there's anything to make you say, does this make sense? That is a great opportunity to stop and ask questions. Like if you get a text saying there was a problem with your FedEx delivery, but you don't have a FedEx delivery, you can move on. And even if you have one, you can contact FedEx separately if you have questions, but you could just go ahead and ignore that text. Look at this sketchy guy. So if somebody from the church office, for example, asks you to do anything discreetly, that's a scam. Can I get an amen? Ask you to buy gift cards, ask you to do anything that you're like, why is he asking me to do that? That's a scam, and you can certainly call the church office, call them on a different contact method to verify that. But it happened to me as an example from Hannah Burgess, who works in the finance in the church office. I got an email from Hannah asking what she needed to add people to a church bank account, which is a normal question I would get. And I said, well, I need his driver's license, social security number, whatever. And then I got an email response back. Had a driver's license from New York. I didn't recognize the guy. And I go here, and I thought, well, I don't know everybody at Longview, but I don't know why we would be adding somebody to our bank account that just moved from New York. So what's up with that? Did I email her back? No, I didn't email her back, because if a scammer had her email, they're going to say, yeah, that's right. So I called her separately, and she said, no, that wasn't me. Somebody got into my email. And it was hannah@lhbc.me, or whatever her email address is. But she asked me to do something a little weird, and I wanted to double check. And even if, for whatever reason, she wanted to do that, it doesn't hurt her feelings, it doesn't hurt anybody's feelings for you to just double check. Because we all know what kind of world we live in now. It's not offensive to verify. So just to review real quick, that was like 10 different things. And if I could get this clicker to work, that would be great. Andrew, this is your clicker. Let's see. So if you could just click and put, so we got strong emotion, a sense of urgency. You can go to the next one. Too good to be true, secrecy, unusual payment methods, requesting personal information, request to send money back, access to your device, spelling, grammar, and then anything unusual. So those are some of I think that's like 10 of them, top 10 tactics, red flags that I see pretty consistently. Any scam you tell me about probably has a couple of those involved in them. So while I'm not able to cover every scenario, this is just a lot of commonalities that scams share. So let's do a quick activity. So you should, in your handout, have in front of you on the very first page an email that looks like it's from McAfee. So I want to take just a couple of minutes. I'm sure a lot of you have looked at this already, which is perfectly fine. But I want to give us maybe like 2 minutes just to go through that email, and I want you to circle anything that stands out to you at all. Anything that you think is worth paying attention to, and if it's an idea, you can write it on the side. We'll just take a couple of minutes to do that. And just for context, I don't have a McAfee account or anything. This email is to me, and I don't have a McAfee account, so I'm going to go ahead and give that to you. So take just a couple minutes and circle, underline anything that you think is worth observing. All right, I'm going to give us about 30 more seconds. Okay, so let's look at what we came up with. Oh, that's weird. Okay, anyway. So one item immediately that alerted me that this was a scam, this is an email that I got actually. It claims to be from McAfee, which is an antivirus company, but the email address is aishahardy980@gmail.com. So immediately scam. In the subject line, that should be circled, okay, due soon. So already a person would be feeling potentially a sense of urgency. It's not crazy, but it's subtle. That's worth noting to make sure that what you're dealing with is not a scam. Should have another, all right. Transaction for McAfee Secure. I circled that because that's weird. I didn't make a transaction with McAfee, so that alone is weird. And then we have, it's been successfully completed. We confirm today's acknowledgement and processing of the 45353 patent, randomly capitalized. I heard somebody down there got that. That P is capitalized. Patent for the McAfee Secure auto renewal. No period, so that's weird. Feel free to reach out if you require additional information or have uncertainties regarding this transaction. I just found that to be a weird way to word that. That was kind of weird English for McAfee. Should you need help, feel free to reach out to our customer service team. And they said reach out twice in a row. That was redundant and kind of weird from an official email. And that phone number, it's all smushed together. It's a little weird format. Within the next 6 hours. I can only dispute this in the next 6 hours. That's crazy. And that creates that sense of urgency. And then the bottom of the email here. So, we want to express our gratitude for your preference for McAfee Secure. That's a weird way for saying thank you for choosing McAfee. And they used the wrong your, by the way. Hope y'all saw that. They were inconsistent with their capitalization of McAfee. And they said, warm regards, McAfee Secure. Again, seems a little too friendly for an antivirus email. Their address doesn't have a city in it. That's random. And for inquiries, please support us at da-da-da-da-da phone number. What do you mean, please support us? That's such a weird thing to say. So those are a bunch of the items that I found in that email that pointed to this is definitely a scam. So the question is, how do we respond? If you get an email like that, or if you get a phone call that's alarming, or you get a text message or a thing in the mail that's good, whatever, how do you respond? Stop. Let's just start there. Start by stopping. Stop. Create some kind of space, which is what I should have done when I gave the $5, and give myself time to get out of feeling, out of urgency, out of just reacting, and give myself time to be rational. Put some kind of distance. And now the scammer is going to be resistant to that. They're going to want you to communicate, stay on the phone, start acting, whatever. But if there's anything you could do to stop, which might be hanging up the phone, it might be ignoring the text message, putting it down, coming back later, stop and let's ask some questions. Get your mind back to thinking clearly rather than reacting to emotion. If it's a phone call, you can hang up, even if it is literally your child's voice on the phone or your grandchild's voice. You can hang up and just turn around and call them right back, because the phone may show their phone number on it. Phone numbers can be copied. That's called spoofing, to my knowledge. So you can hang up, you can ignore whatever it is, throw it away. Just because it says that you've lost $20,000 or that there is a warrant or a fine or whatever it is, doesn't mean it's true. But if you feel like there's any possibility that what you're dealing with might be legitimate, you think there might be some truth to it, This is where we want to verify independently, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with looking into something, finding out if it's true. But what you don't want to do is call the phone number in the thing in question, okay? On the letter or in the email, you don't want to call the phone number that they give you or click on the link they give you. Find whatever alternate method of verifying. So you could Google a number. If it seems to be from Verizon, you could look up their number separately and call it. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can absolutely call a family member to help you. Ask your bank, hey, do you think this is a scam? People do that all the time, and a lot of times we can look at it and say, yeah, that's a scam. But sometimes it's not that clear, and we have to do a little bit more investigating. But I usually treat things like, if I'm not sure, I'm going to treat it like it's a scam until I can really get it verified. Otherwise, you can go to ssa.gov if you think it's Social Security, or to irs.gov, or call the Sheriff's Department. But feel free to ask somebody. That is not shameful, not offensive at all. You want to verify outside the source of the thing in question. And then finally, what if you did give away information or money? What if you did let it go a little bit too far? Well, I would contact your bank, talk through it with them, let us help you figure out what exactly was compromised. Sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes you just had a conversation, and as it turns out, everything's fine. But if you gave, your bank account number on the phone or your online banking, we can help you transition to a new bank account number. We can make that happen, but we need to know quickly so that the scammer can't just keep taking your money. We want to lock that down in a sense and get you transitioned to something safe. So I would just go ahead and let your bank know. You might be embarrassing, whatever, but we would rather go ahead and hear it from you than let a scammer keep taking your money. Secure your device, and by that I mean if you had somebody on your computer with you or on your phone with you, I would take that to a professional and have that cleaned, like maybe Best Buy or some Geek Squad, something like that. Delete that app off your phone if at any point in the process they had you add something to your phone. You want to get rid of that. You do want to change your username and password, but you don't want to do that while the scammer has access to your computer, okay? So if the computer is where they were, change password on something different, but make sure you get all that cleaned. And in some cases, if it's your Social Security number, something like that, you may consider a freeze on your credit just so that someone's not able to open cards and loans in your name. That's something that some people will do. So that's basically all I have time for. Those are the big scams or the big red flags and tactics that I think are most helpful and that I see most often. I just really want to encourage you to talk about these things with each other. I'm sure at each table there's probably somebody that this is a little bit too personal for. And if at any point I spoke at all harshly, we are going to have a Q&A at the end, Ms. Betty. Okay. If at any point I spoke firmly, my frustration is not with you all, it's with the scammers, okay? The scammers are the criminals. I don't want us to be afraid to live our lives. I don't want you to be afraid and say, I just can't touch that. Now, you may decide Facebook is not for you. That's fine. But I don't want you to live in fear. And I also don't want us to have any kind of arrogant attitude either and think, well, okay, I know all of that. I would never fall for that. Because, again, it could happen to anyone. So humble vigilance is what I'd like to promote. And lean on each other. Lean on your family members, church members, to verify these things. Ask each other about them. And also, I would recommend praying to God for wisdom and discernment in all of these things, in every part of our lives, praying to God. And I know that He will help us as He sees fit. And I don't know about you, but all this wickedness that we've been talking about really makes me look forward to my eternal inheritance that can never be scammed away. And that's all I have time for. I'm going to hand it over to Detective Sinowetski. Thank you.
Wow, that was awesome. Can we get one more round of applause for her? All right, so my name is Detective Sinowetski. I work for the DeSoto County Sheriff's Office in Hernando. We first off, we cover all of DeSoto County. We work very closely with the cities. I have worked for the sheriff's office since 2018, so I've been there for a minute. I've had several very interesting and fascinating jobs, including working in our jail, working as a patrolman, working as a field training officer. But I also have some really cool jobs right now, including being a drone pilot, being part of where I am now, the criminal investigations division, thus the detective part. But that's currently where I'm at. And one of the things that I get to do there is I get to investigate these pesky scam calls that everybody keeps getting. So that's something that I deal with, and everybody else at the sheriff's office deals with on a daily basis. Every day we get anywhere between 3 and 5 scam call walk-ins at the sheriff's office in Hernando, and that doesn't count the ones that patrolmen are taking on a daily basis. So this is something that is hitting our community particularly hard, and that's why it's such a blessing to be here today to talk to y'all about it. There's 2 main things I want y'all to get from this talk today. First off, these guys are very good at what they do, so there's nothing to feel bad about. Second, I want you to kind of understand a little bit more how these scams particularly work. So let's start off with a story. I love stories. So go back, it's the early 90s. You unplug the cable from your telephone and you plug it into your computer. The dial-up tones start playing, right? You log on, AOL, and you have a message. It's from a Nigerian prince of all people. And he's writing specifically to you. He needs your help. His evil brother has frozen him out of all of his bank accounts and his millions of dollars. But he needs your help to get back to Nigeria to get access to all of his wealth and his inheritance. So he needs you to go down to Western Union and send him $1,000 so he can get a plane ticket. Has anybody heard this story before? We all have, in one shape or form, right? It's the Nigerian prince scam. Would that work on anybody in here today? Can I ask why that wouldn't work on anybody in here today? Because we've all heard of it. It's a well-known scam. And that's one of the things I want everybody to get from this talk today is the more we know how these scams work, the less effective they are. The proof is with the Nigerian prince scam. Nobody falls for it anymore because everybody knows how it works. So let's start off with some of the ones that we are seeing extremely often at the sheriff's office. You get a phone call. They know your name, or they know a loved one's name, and they say, are you related to, or are you so-and-so? If it's yes, oh, you have either a warrant for your arrest, your family member has a warrant for their arrest, or your family member's in jail, and they may actually be in jail. What do? They're asking for you to pay your bond up front so you don't have to get arrested, or pay for your loved one's bond or an ankle monitor for their release. They do this very specifically to try to get a sense of urgency, and they say if you don't do it right now, they're going to have to sit in jail for a very long time, or the next time you get stopped, you're going to get arrested, right? They try to convince you that there's a sense of urgency in this stuff, and then they try to get money from you. What that's called is, there's many names for it: social engineering, confidence game, smooth talking. All it is they're simply trying to use their knowledge and their way of talking to get you to do something, and very often it is to get money from you. So how do they do this? They ask for gift cards, Zelle, PayPal, Cash App, any kind of instant cash transfer to try to get money from you for this alleged bond for either you or a loved one, right? That should be a red flag immediately, but we see it all the time because they're very good at talking, and they're very good at convincing you to do what it is they want you to do, right? So the people that we've identified, and I've have several active investigations right now that I'm looking into. I'm one of our main fraud investigators, so I deal with it more than most. I have several active investigations and several past investigations, some of which we've identified the people behind. They do not care. Most of the time, for the people we have identified from these, they're sitting in prison already. specifically with the Georgia Department of Corrections, and they would do this to their own loved ones, including their mother. So that's the kind of person that you're dealing with when they call, right? They do not care. They're already in prison. How they get the phones is another rabbit hole that I'm more than willing to talk about. I love rabbit holes. It's probably why I'm a good detective, because I like going down and figuring how weird pieces of information are, right? But these people don't care. So they get the payment, and then they try to get more, or they push you to do more, and that should be another red flag, right? What you should do if you get these calls is just hang up, right? Call the actual sheriff's department. You can Google it. You can look up on Google Maps our number. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to have a warrant unless you keep running that stop sign around the corner from your neighborhood, and I guarantee you most of y'all probably are not. But just call. That's one of the most common ones that we see. It works all the time, unfortunately, but the more we talk about it, the more you understand how this works. They call, they get your information from online. If you simply Google your name or your name and the city that you live in, you'd be shocked how much information is online about you. They take that, they then make a phone call to the number they got online and say, hey, are you so-and-so? You have a warrant. That's how that works. From there, they try to get you to send them money through these instant pay apps, and one of the ones that we're seeing a lot of is the Bitcoin kiosks. And they will send and text supporting documents such as a generic warrant that's been obviously photoshopped to have your name on it from the circuit court of insert DeSoto County here. We've seen some that are really well done with pictures of our sheriff on them. We've seen some that they forgot to remove some of the insert information here blanks. It ranges, but they will send this to you to try to enforce that we're an actual person of authority. Let's talk a little bit more how they get this position of authority with people over the phone, right? Everybody loves cops, right? They play on that. They play on societal norms of the good policeman. He's just trying to do his job. I'm supposed to help him, right? That's what they play off of. They play off of these, I'm a good person, I haven't done anything wrong, so obviously I'm going to cooperate with the policeman on the phone, right? That's exactly what they use in order, and that's why this is so effective. They use societal norms that any of us in here have done and would do again, right? So they take this money and they use, one of the big ones is Bitcoin kiosk. First off, we do not use Bitcoin for anything. So please, if you learn nothing else, the third thing that you should learn tonight, we are not going to ask you to insert anything into a Bitcoin kiosk. We're not going to ask you to go to the bank, withdraw thousands of dollars. I'm working cases ranging from $500 to $3.3 million on this stuff. So yeah, it's pretty rampant, and the Bitcoin kiosks are some of the worser ones that we've seen. I know that's not exactly proper English, but that's the truth. It's pretty bad. But that's one of our common ones is these warrant scams. We call them our jail scams, right? And I've identified, and we're currently charging and going after some of these inmates in the Georgia Department of Corrections, one of which is already serving a life sentence. Take that for what it will, for what it is, but we are finding out who these people are, and we're going after them. And that's thanks to the help of not only the victims, but others in the community who encourage them to step forward. That's the other thing that you need to take away from this. There is no shame in this because of how ruthless and how good they are. So if this has happened to you or it's almost happened to you, it only helps if you speak up and contribute the information to either the police or those around you so that the awareness spreads. All right, there's nothing to be ashamed of. It is personal, but to them, that's just how they make their money. And it's not going to stop until we find them, or like with the Nigerian print scam, it becomes so well known how exactly it works that it's no longer effective, so they move on to something else. And that starts with us right here in this room. Another very common scam that we're seeing is sometimes referred to as the tech support scam, and I believe she touched on it a little bit. If anything pops up on your phone, it's probably not going to be Facebook, Apple, PayPal, or anything like that to say call now or you've got viruses. Just simply shut your phone off, turn it back on. I guarantee it's not going to be there anymore. This isn't like the 90s movie Hackers. that's not exactly how viruses work, but they prey on that people usually don't know how viruses work. And I didn't exactly know how it worked until I started working this job. I was like, oh, that's really sneaky, and that's not at all like the movie Hackers. So I was one of the people who had to get educated on it really quickly when I started doing this job. Another very common scam that we see is often it's adjacent to the jail scam, but I'm with the U.S. Secret Service or insert federal agency here. We're investigating a really awful crime, and you're our main suspect. So what I need you to do is I need you to wire $20,000 to this bank account, because I know that you are not the one behind this really, but right now you're the one who's going to be arrested for it, so that we can catch the real bad guys behind it. That was a multi-thousand-dollar scam, unfortunately. And that one, unlike our regular jail scams, that one originated in India. They have whole call centers set up in India, Southeast Asia, of just people crammed into there, and it's right next to legitimate, there's specific ones right next door to a legitimate AT&T call center. And this is what they do all day, and they get a percentage, and I've actually talked to one of them on the phone who actually called my personal cell phone. And I was like, okay, I know you're not from Trustmark Bank. How much do you make on this? And he's like, oh yeah, no, I make 15% off of every scam that I get. And I was like, wow, you actually just told me. He's like, yeah, I don't care. So it was actually an interesting conversation coming from my side of the fence to kind of see how these things work. But I can go down this rabbit hole all day long on this specific scams, but what it comes down to is if there's a sense of urgency, or they're trying to have you rely on some kind of societal norm to wire them money immediately, just stop and hang up the phone. They will try to call you back. They will blow up your phone from whatever number they have, but it's not going to be the actual sheriff's office or the Secret Service or anybody in law enforcement that's going to ask you to wire $20,000 through Bitcoin. From here, I think we're going to go into the Q&A, and this is my favorite part of it because you get to actually talk to your friendly neighborhood detective as well as someone from the bank who deals with this all day long. So if you have any questions, no matter how small or how big, as long as it's nothing that reveals an active investigation, I will be happy to answer it. I know she will too.
Okay, let's give them another round of applause before we do that. All right, so how this is going to work is I'm going to bring the microphone, this one, to you, and you can ask one or the other or both of them to respond, and then they will use the microphone on here. So if you have a question, just raise your hand, and I will come to you. One of the things they pointed out, I appreciate so much, both of you. Y'all both did a fantastic job. But they play on your emotion, and they play on your shame. You feel dumb. How did this happen to me? And so I just want to encourage you right now, don't let shame keep you from asking a question, because the question you ask may be great, a lot of insight for everybody else in this room. So don't hesitate to ask a question. Nobody in here is going to think anybody's dumb or stupid for asking a question, okay? So if anybody has questions, all right, coming that way. I'm coming to Miss Sherry first and then Miss Betty.
I've heard it on the Guthrie thing, and I've heard you say it. I don't know what it is.
What is Bitcoin? You heard that?
There's two answers to that. There's the simple answer, and then there's the really, really, really nerdy answer that I'm not going to bore everybody with up here because it will take way too long. The simple answer is that it's a currency that nobody controls. So it's an alternative to the dollar, but it's a digital currency that nobody controls. So like the US dollar is issued by the US government, Bitcoin is not issued by anybody. It's a digital form of a currency.
All right. This year I received a new Medicare card. Then I got 3 different calls from it sounded like the same man with an accent. And he asked me, 3 times, that the U.S. government is going to give me a back brace. Your doctor told me that you needed a back brace. The government's going to give you one free. Well, he kept on, and he gave me my name. He gave me everything, but he asked me for my new Medicare number. And I said, no, sir. And he said, but the government is going to pay for this for you. I said, I'm still not getting it to you. If you know all this other stuff, you know what it is. So I hung up, of course. And then I called U.S. Gov or whatever the number is. I called them and asked them, are you sending out new Medicare cards? Yes, ma'am, 1.5 million people got new cards this year. And she told me it was because of a scam, that somebody had scammed all of our information, and they had all this stuff. So have y'all heard of anybody being scammed for a new Medicare? But then I had a nurse call me and say, I need your new number. So evidently it's reliable, but he wanted it and I wouldn't give it to him.
So Medicare fraud is one of those things, and especially with the federal government, it's been a huge problem here lately, especially with there's been a lot of data breaches and almost too many to count. So when something sensitive like your Medicare number is compromised and the government can verify that it was compromised, they're going to generally reissue it. Now, Social Security numbers are really hard to reissue, unfortunately, but Medicare cards are pretty easy. So, and the scam that you're referring to is one of those more gray area scams and really falls more into the federal Medicaid fraud system than anything. But they'll go out and they'll solicit people like, hey, we can send you a free back brace. We just need your okay and your Medicare card, right? So that's that sensitive piece of information that they need in order for them to make 100% markup on a back brace because the federal government will pay for it, right? So it's one of those gray area scams to where like it's really the federal government that's losing the money, but they're still going to make the calls to people that they're pretty sure are on Medicaid in order to get that number in order to bill the federal government. And that's usually how that scam works and everything. If they can get the number, and sometimes they get okay from the people behind that have a Medicare card, sometimes they don't. Either way, that Medicare fraud ends up getting paid out by the federal government, and that's something that they've been trying to combat here lately. But it falls on the federal side of things and on specifically Medicare and the Department of Justice to kind of go after those guys. But it is, as you see, it is an actual real thing that real people experience, you know? So you'll get calls from people, hey, we can send you a new bed, we can send you a new wheelchair free of charge, we just need your Medicare number, right? And that it's a very common thing, especially in the federal system.
Hey, good job on you for verifying, though. That was good.
Hello, I had been scanned a few months back, and I went to the bank to talk to one of the people like you are. And they suggested to me, and I want to see if you think this advice is good, if you get a call and you don't recognize it, if they don't leave a voicemail, don't answer the phone, because now they can voice activate your voice, just say hello, and to twist it to whatever they want you to say. Do you think that's good advice or not?
I generally don't answer if I don't recognize it, so that works for me. I don't know if there's anything that I'm overlooking, and in my case, if it's something important, like a doctor or something, they will leave me a voicemail. Now, I will say they can get my voice from my voicemail, so I know that, but I'm not just answering phone calls that I don't recognize.
All right, so there's two parts to that question I want to answer. First off, I agree with her, and this is the policy that I use. If I don't recognize the number, I'm not answering it, right? And then I'm heavily scrutinizing if someone leaves me a voicemail, because most of the 50 voicemails that's been left on my personal phone here lately have all been scammers, right? So if it's something important, I'm probably going to have it in my phone already, right? So I go a little extreme. I'm not saying you have to do that, but it does protect your peace if you just, oh, I don't have it in my phone, I'm just going to ignore it, right? And that's a huge part of this. You don't have to be afraid to protect your peace from this stuff, right? The second part with the cloning of the voice and everything, yes, there are highly experimental AI programs that will clone people's voice. They're called deepfakes. However, for the average person, they are not really a concern unless you are what's called a nation-state actor or employee, like you work for the State Department and you handle top secret documents or something like that, and it's North Korea trying to get them, then that's something for them to deal with, right? But for the everyday person to worry that someone's going to clone your voice with AI really isn't that much of a threat, right? Is it technically possible? Sure, but it's going to take thousands of dollars. And you have to look at the risk versus reward, not only for you as the person who might be being scammed, but for the scammers. Are they going to spend tens of thousands of dollars on this highly experimental software to try to come after Jacob Sinowetski in the middle of Mississippi, right? They're probably not going to. So that's something that I would put in the category of, I wouldn't really worry about it, if that makes any sense, right? Does that kind of answer that side of the question? Good.
All right, I know some of you are raising your hands. We got Miss Karen back here, and then I'm coming to Miss Sharon up there, and then Debbie, did you have your hand too? So that's kind of the order. We'll go there, there, there. So then you can start raising your hands, and don't get mad at me if I don't catch you before I see another hand. Amen, amen. Miss Karen.
I just wondered if the police department ever calls for contributions.
If the police department
If the
calls
poli-
for contributions,
Yeah.
the police department will never call you for contributions, neither will
I've
the
had
sheriff's
several
office.
calls.
We do have volunteer programs, and we do have 501c3 organizations for donations and stuff like that. We're never going to solicit that from you, though. Those are usually from citizens who approach us and be like recently, I'm on the drone unit, right? A couple of citizens from DeSoto County stepped up and bought us a whole new drone fleet and donated it to us so that we could find missing and lost and sometimes suspects on the run a little bit safer. So there are ways to donate to the sheriff's office for that stuff. We're never going to solicit it, though, right? And those are people that can't approach us to buy those for us. And we've been able to save already dozens of lives with those drones that we just got a few months ago.
I just got a letter the other day from a doctor's office that says my account has been, whatever the word was, compromised, and that probably I needed to take action and whatever. But that's not the first time I've gotten a letter from a doctor's office. So, I mean, they get your social security numbers. You have to give it to them to file claims and stuff like that. Well, at my doctor's office you do. But anyway, how do you handle that? Because you don't have any control that your information has been compromised.
How do you handle the fact that the scammer has your information? Is that what you're asking?
They'll just say that it has been, their computer system has been.
Okay, well, that actually may not be true. They may tell you they have your information, but that doesn't mean they do. And if you have any question about your doctor's office computer being compromised, you can call them separately on a number from an actual bill that you have from them, or maybe look up their number or ask someone to help you look up their number and ask them, and they can advise you, no, that hasn't happened to us. And that's probably the case, especially if you've gotten multiple and kind of vague, like, oh, it's been compromised, you need to change something. That sounds like a scam to me, just hearing from you. But if you ever wonder, you can contact your doctor's office directly, but not on any phone number from that piece of paper. So that's what I would recommend. Oh, like if you called your doctor and they said, we were compromised, your information's out there. I think she's asking about reporting. Oh, the credit bureaus. Okay, legit data breach. You might. I've heard people wanting to contact the top 3 credit reporting bureaus, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, because somebody could conceivably try to open things in your name. Some people will have an app like Credit Karma or something like that, so they can keep track of things being opened. But a preventative measure could be placing a freeze on your credit. Now, if it's just your address, that's kind of public anyway, so there's not a whole lot I would say you could do about that. But that's my thought if it's something like your social security number.
Miss Sherry had one too, so Debbie, I'm just gonna save myself a few steps, if that's all right.
Laura. Do you work for Cadence?
I used to work for Cadence. I'm
Okay.
at First Choice Bank now.
Well, Cadence has just transferred over to Huntington.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of people may be affected by that, but I've had to give information, I don't know how many times lately, with the last 4 digits of my Social Security and also all my banking information. Is there a chance of anybody causing a problem with that? I mean, I've had to online to give that information, but if I
Yes.
call them, then it's probably safe, I'm just saying.
Yes, I would say so. So it is normal if, like, I have Entergy, for example, that does my electricity. I have an account with them. I've gone online with them, and I've decided, there's some risk to everything we do, but I've given them my bank account number and routing number to draft my energy bill every month. So I'm prepared to contact them and make those changes if I had to. But the Huntington merger does present a vulnerability that lots of scammers are going to try to call Huntington customers saying, like, oh, I'm aware of this change, and ask you for things. So anytime a bank has a merger, we're very alert about scams. But in your case, if you're the one reaching out to them and you're very confident, in the contact information you're using, that is normal. But just be wary anytime somebody asks you for those. Yeah.
Google and Google Maps are your friend when it comes to finding verified numbers for places. That's always where I start. That's always where you should start. If someone contacts you saying that they're from someplace and they have something really important to discuss with you, hang up, Google the number, call that number. You'll get to, if it's legit, you'll get back to that person. Same goes for the sheriff's office.
So I get daily calls from the business loan team from an unnamed bank. Like, anyway, and so for several days in a row, it'll be the same number, the same person, so to speak. And then after a few days, it changes. It'll be a new number and a new name, but it's still the business loan team. And it's always something related to, I'm looking at one of the voicemails here. I never answer. I let it go to voicemail. But, like, you may qualify for up to $335,000 in a working capital. I mean, and
I suspect we have the same voicemail pattern right now.
Anyway, and and so I just want it to stop. But I don't know, other than just letting it go to voicemail, I don't know. And it's always, every few days, the number changes and the person's name changes, but it's always the same general message, like about a business loan, or we've got your paperwork ready to go to closing, So anyway,
First off, if you haven't applied for a loan or anything like that, those are always 100% of the time going to be a scam. The second part of that is, how do they get those numbers? Scammers in general get your number and information from 2 places. What's public record on the internet, like freepeoplesearch.com. The other part is from data breaches. The first you can do something about, the second you really can't, which is why, I suspect we have the same pattern. You can check and see if your information has been involved in a data breach from some of these big companies. Like, mine was probably gotten from an AT&T data breach. But that's where scammers like that usually get that information. And it's not even a real person that's calling most of the time. It's a program that's just going down a list of numbers that they've gotten. So as far as how to stop that, iPhones have a way to kind of filter calls and everything like that, but even then they get through, like you see, this stuff is always evolving. Unfortunately, you'll be the third to know, because I'll be the second one to know, because someone will probably show it to me how to keep that from happening. But unfortunately, there's nothing in place to kind of keep that from coming. Like I said, I'm pretty brutal about it. If I don't have you saved in my phone, I'm not answering it, even if it's a voicemail.
Anybody thinking about open business or have a business already in Mississippi, you have to get a tax number business license from state of the Mississippi, which I had for 30 years. And 3 years ago, I received a letter from state of the Mississippi. Address stamp from state of the Mississippi is say, I need to renew my business license. Send a $75 in, which I did. Then a week later, I received from letter from state of Mississippi. Do not send money. This letter we never send out. So I just let you know, anybody send you a letter, anything renew, send money, don't do it. That's it.
And one thing you can do too with Google is if you have something that you think could be a scam, you can type in state of Mississippi scam and just see what comes up, because sometimes if there's something common, people will be talking about it online. And I will say what I liked about her question about the voicemail is if you don't answer it, yeah, your voicemail still may be full of voicemails from scammers, but it gives you that space. You're not on the phone with somebody pressuring you. They're in a voicemail, and it gives you some time to think about it. So I like just not answering phone calls that I don't recognize.
What is your recommendation for seniors or people who might be, their mental capacity might not be 100%, a backup for them? Like for my mother, myself, everything for her comes to me. My phone number, my email. Is there a recommendation out there for a family member to have a trusted, perhaps friend, family member, like as a backup at the bank? Or
on the banking side of things, the best thing we can recommend, I suppose, would be being on the account with them, because that gives us the ability to communicate with you freely about what happens on the account. Our hands are generally tied if you are not on the signature card with them, and we've had that come up, like, oh, I wish I could contact this person's family members. But a family member is one of the best resources if you are dealing with somebody who has a failing mental capacity, because at that point, you know, they may really not need to be on Facebook. They really may. My grandmother's in that situation. She doesn't need to be touching her phone really at this point, and they've put my mom on all the accounts with her.
so in that they would also have a power of attorney of some sort with a signature card?
Signature card, I would say, is kind of more powerful than a power of attorney, because banks don't always have to honor the entire power of attorney. That I've seen that happen. You say, oh, I have power of attorney. Well, first of all, you have to go through the process to request that that be put on file. The bank's going to want to know, what exactly do you want to do? They really resist giving just full access to somebody. So they're going to say, what specifically do you want to do? Do you want to endorse checks for this person? Do you want to withdraw? But if you're already on the account with them, you can do withdrawals. You can get information. So it wouldn't hurt to have both. But of course, power of attorney also would cease at death. So if that makes a difference to you, being on the account with them generally is going to give you the most power and the most access.
That's what I've done personally with my mom. I'm on her checking account, savings account, everything, investment accounts, everything. But some people out there don't have someone, or they don't even know they can do that. So is it something the bank could recommend?
That is really difficult if there's no one in your life. Our hands are kind of tied at that point. We do the best that we can to give recommendations when the customers are in our office, but that's a point where I've been like, I don't really know what to recommend, to be honest, if there's just nobody in this person's life, and it makes me feel very bad because I can only do so much at that point. We are trying to watch out for our customers, but we can't always control what they do with their money. So.
Yeah, I changed computer technician guys about a year ago, and I don't know what computer antiviral program the old person had, the previous one, but the new person put on malware bites to protect my computer. There are two problems here. I kept getting bills from McAfee, or at least it claimed to be McAfee, and threatening to wipe out my account if I didn't pay to renew my antiviral program. I have ignored them because I have a different antiviral program. That's how I handle it. And if you got any thoughts on that, okay, but I'll go on to my next question. The new antiviral program called Malwarebytes sent me an email saying that there had been a data breach and some of my information was out there, and they want to recommend something to me to protect myself. Well, I'm not sure if I can trust them to protect me, or should I go to LifeLock? I'm not a member of LifeLock. My brother is, but I kind of had a feeling that maybe that would be a better route to go, but I'm not sure who I can trust when it comes to protecting my information.
So 2 things about that. One, and this is the kind of crummy part about modern antivirus software, you want to recommend something. I use a secondary antivirus on my computers. I use the free version though, but most of them are pretty scummy in that they send you a lot of pop-ups. Like sometimes they're worse than the actual scammers who send you the Facebook pop-ups and everything like that, right? So unfortunately that's something that they all kind of do. So as far as like how to get away from that, unfortunately, I don't have an answer for that unless you just want to go with the standard Windows Defender antivirus stuff. The second part of that is you mentioned that you got a notification that you were in a data breach, right? And you want to take, and they're offering a service to you because they're a business that wants to upcharge you, right?
Right.
You're wanting to know who you can go to better protect yourself. There's lots of services and everything like that, but unfortunately, at the end of the day, it all comes down to that all they're doing is monitoring for someone to use that information from that data breach. They all do the exact same thing. They just monitor and let you know when you need to go to the bank to change your banking info or freeze your credit or, hey, someone took out a loan or something like that. That's all that any of them will do, including LifeLock, is they all they are monitoring. So you can pay someone to monitor, or you can go through the free version with Experian and Credit Karma and monitor it manually. But that's all that is they're just trying to sell you a monitoring service. And I hate to break it to you, unfortunately, probably most of the people in this room are part of some form of data breach somehow, some way. Now, the extent of it depends and varies. So, like, for example, the AT&T one that I mentioned that I was a part of, I've been a part of 2 that I know of, right? They got my phone number, my name, part of my date of birth, but that's it, right? However, some of the more major ones from other companies can include partial payment information, partial social information, full date of birth, stuff like that. Again, how do you protect yourself? The only way to do it is monitoring, and that's the only thing that they're trying to sell you, right? So it's one of those things you got to look at, like, what are the odds of someone actually using it versus what are you going to pay a company to do it versus can you figure out how to do it yourself, right? So I do it for free myself, right? But if you think that it's worth it to pay someone, do your research, find a reputable company, and go with them, right?
Okay, can I ask another question? I have also been getting messages from PayPal that I owe them money. Now, I don't recall ever setting up an account with PayPal. I always, when I have a choice, when I'm going to do something over the internet, I go with my credit card.
Yeah, that's probably a scam from PayPal.
Okay,
Right.
that's what I thought.
Yeah. No, that's a good example of one of that unusual situation. I didn't even have a PayPal account. Well, moving on.
All right. Anybody have a question?
Yes, sir. Can the scammers use television? There are a lot of ads on TV, such as your insurance will pay, that sort of thing. When you were talking about that earlier, does the television network, do they protect us, or are the scammers on television?
Yeah, that gets into more of your gray area stuff, and it's a fine line between, yeah, it might be a scam or it might just be predatory marketing and stuff like that. So it's along the same lines as when you turn on the TV real late at night, you get these infomercials for 19 easy payments of $9.99. You can get this new widget or whatever, right? So there's definitely a fair share of like scummy marketing out there and everything. But what you're describing would be more of kind of, I call them the gray area scams, where is it just crummy marketing and they're just predatory marketing, or is it a legit like scam that they took out the money. Most of the time, though, it's predatory marketing is what you're seeing.
I'm going to stand up so you can see who I am. I've always considered myself to be fairly smart, but everything y'all said, I've fell prey to that. I mean, everything they talked about of getting your information, I had to have, and I lost money, and I felt like a fool. But I'm thankful that I went through it, even though it's still this just brings back awful memories for me. But what they're saying is true. They can get into your bank account. I had to scrub my computer. I had to change bank accounts, and I had to do everything, but not until they got a lot of stuff from me. And it was awful. It was like they were controlling me, like I was doing everything they wanted me to do. And it scared me to death, and I didn't think I'd ever get over it. So I finally told John, I should have told him to begin with, but you know, I was in charge. And so he said, is this the people you called? So he said something to him when they called back. I don't even know what he said, and I'm sure it wasn't as nice as I would have been. So I want to just tell you what they've shared is real, and I thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Yeah. On that note, let me just share with you just a few of the I'm not going to give names, but I'm going to give jobs of some of the victims that I've worked cases for. I've worked it for former cops. I've worked it for current cops. I've worked it for bankers. I've worked it for several lawyers who fell victim to scams like this. I even worked it for a judge once. So it literally is something that impacts every single level, status, job set in society. So like she said, it can and will affect everyone, especially the ones that think that they won't. My grandfather is living proof of that. So it can affect anybody, especially if you get caught up in the social engineering and the sense of urgency that they are very good at instilling in people.
I've got a business question for you, or for y'all. I'm recently getting a lot of calls of people soliciting business from me, which is legit, but they're saying is, okay, we're going to hire a cleaning crew, but they won't take a check from me. If you'll go ahead and pay it, we'll pay you what we would owe you plus that. Is there anyone in particular I need to report this to? Any services or anything?
So they're wanting to pay people under the table?
No, they're wanting me to pay, and then they'll give me a bad check or something.
Yeah, that has scam written all over it.
No, it is a scam. I just don't know if there's someone I should report this to.
If you have if you ever have any
standpoint.
doubt of whether something's illegal or not,
Yeah.
or if there's any kind of cyber or electronic tie-in
I've
to
got
it,
emails.
even like communications like that, IC3.gov is the FBI Internet Crime Reporting website. That's the Internet Crimes Division of the FBI. Anything that has a cyber tie to it, you can report directly to them, even if you're not sure if it is, and they will look into it. All right? So, and for our local SAMs and everything like that, if you're not sure, you can report it to the FBI and the local authorities. You can do one or the other. Even if you just want to report on file for your bank or something like that, the FBI has a portal set up specifically for that, and you can do it all on your phone. It's IC3.gov. If you look on the handout from the sheriff's office, it has it on there along with their logo, and there's a QR code you can scan that takes you directly to their site. And they have a lot of really good free resources, especially on scams and everything like that. In fact, if you go there now, there's a big red banner that says, if someone calls you claiming to be from IC3, it's probably not us.
This is probably for Laura. We may be the only person in the room that does not have a PayPal, Venmo. How much of a risk? We've been called, you're so old-fashioned. You need to get with it. What do you suggest? Is there a lot of risk, or do you recommend it?
Risk in having like those instant transfer apps and kind of thing. In my experience, I haven't seen a whole lot of risk in just having them. Now, you know, if you have a PayPal, that could potentially create a vulnerability just in, then if you get an email claiming to be from PayPal, you're more likely to think that's real. But generally having those things or having online banking or something, in my experience, the greatest risk is when somebody participates in a scam. Scammers may try to get you, but just by having it doesn't mean that they can get anything. Does that make sense? Like, I would say they're generally okay to have. You just want to be very, very clear on who you're sending money to and when and why and that kind of thing. Yeah.
And I just want to let you know you're not alone. I don't have any of those things either.
I don't either. My wife does, though. All right, I got Miss Rusty back here, and then if anybody else has a question, raise your hand.
Occasionally, I've been known to get on Facebook, and mainly I use it for just pleasure. Well, you had an example on there a while ago of where all of a sudden it freezes. It starts giving you all these alerts and everything. Do not turn your computer off, blah, blah, blah. Well, on a email or something, you kind of see some things, but now the other day I clicked on something that had Bobby Corley's name on it, and but it froze. Now, I have in the past, a long time ago, before all this kind of became knowledgeable, I called that number. You know, they said it's frozen and I'm not going to be able to use my computer and blah, blah, blah. Well, then he wanted $300 and something, so then I hung up. But now I find that if I just go ahead and hang up, well, just shut it down and then maybe bring it back up, it will go back to normal. But what on Facebook are they scamming on that also? I mean, and it's very official, very alert, and, you gotta call this number.
So most of those, especially on Facebook, where you click on something on Facebook and your computer or your phone starts acting weird like that,
yeah.
Most of the time, those are mainly isolated to whatever you're viewing it on. So like even the official Facebook app is just a reskinned browser for the internet. So it's usually only contained to that first, right? So there's very minimal threat from that.
So they're selling from...
The second part of that is what's actually causing that is a malicious link to a site that's kind of causing pretty much a video to play that displays all that, right?
Right.
And it's telling you, don't turn off your computer, call this number right now, you can't do anything, right? It's just a malicious link. And those get inserted on Facebook anyway from hijacking a legitimate link, which is less common, to more than often the weakest link in security is usually human beings. So if your password is password 12345, that's the first one that scammers and hackers always check, and they'll use legitimate Facebook accounts, post, hey, check out this link, you could get $5 off your next Walmart order or something like that, and then it redirects you to that malicious link and everything like that. That's where most of them come from. Not all of them, but that's the most common one that you'll see and everything like that.
So this is a question kind of for you. So would you agree that it's not the actual Facebook link, like the place where you would click on Bobby's name and get to his profile, but a link within a post or an ad, like something that's not actually from Facebook? Is that how that usually is?
Yes, thank you for clarifying. They'll post something in a post, not necessarily you click on their profile or something like that is usually where those come from. Thank you.
All right.
Oh, I just want to add, my grandmother has like 4 different Facebook profiles because scammers have taken her picture, copied it, created new profiles, requested friends with people who were on her other friend list, and built a profile that looks legitimate and tried to communicate with people. So people can basically, I can make a profile right now and call it Derek Wilson or whatever. And then also sometimes people's Facebooks get hacked, and I guess I mean hacked in the true sense of the word. So if somebody messages you on Facebook, maybe in this room, and it seems like odd timing or they're communicating a little strange, it very well might not be them. So that can happen.
How often do recommend changing your passwords? And should you use the same password for every account?
The second one is a no, absolutely not. The first one, however, that really comes down to, like, the government will have you change your password on a government system every 30 to 60 days or something like that. It just depends on, one, like, how big of a risk do you really think it is and how strong your passwords are. I use a password manager. There's several good free ones out there. I use a paid one because I have several devices, but I use a password manager. I have one very secure, very long password that is only used for that, and that's the only one that I remember. And then the password manager generates the passwords for me. So they are completely randomized. None of them are the same, and that does all the hard work for me. So that's what I recommend for people when they ask about how often should I change my passwords, should I change my password, should it be the same password, how do I keep track of all these is the biggest one, because my memory isn't that good to remember. I think I'm up to like 300 passwords in the stupid thing. So it makes it really, really easy. There's several free, really good ones out there. Do your research. But a password manager is never a bad idea. And you can set them to remind you, like, hey, it's been 90 days since you last changed this password. You might want to change it. And some of them will actually monitor for data breaches that your passwords come up in, and will alert you, hey, your password showed up in a data breach from AT&T. You might want to change that. So.
All right. Are there any other questions?
I can definitely not recommend Proton Pass. Use code DeSoto. I'm kidding. BitLocker, Proton Pass, Password Pass. If you go on the App Store, there's several good ones. Apple has a pretty decent one built into their iPhones for password managers and everything like that. But I personally use Proton Pass, and there's a free version of it, and then there's a paid version of it. If you just use one device, the free one will be just fine. NordLocker is another good one. So.
All right, anyone else? I don't want to not give anyone an opportunity, but all right. Well, look, let's give them another round of applause. And I just want to brag on all of you. Y'all asked some really great questions, and that I think helped. So thank you for being willing to ask questions. We had a great turnout tonight. I thought tonight was really good. I want to just say a couple of things that they kind of shared, and really one is I don't know how it was said, but it was basically lean on each other. Lean on each other. One of the ploys is that they can get you isolated and you feeling ashamed and you feeling stupid and you like afraid to admit that to anyone else. And that just perpetuates the cycle. And another thing, they are very good at what they do. They're very good at what they do. They're doing, unfortunately, if they work that hard at making a living and producing, a constructive part of society, it would benefit. But they are good at what they do, and so be vigilant, be aware the things they've talked about. If you're ever step back, if you need help, need to ask some questions, don't be afraid to do so. So again, thank you both so much. Y'all did a fantastic job, and we are so glad that you were able to be with us. So let me pray, and we'll be dismissed, and we can head home. Father, we love you and praise you, and we thank you for the time we've been able to have tonight. Lord, I just thank you for Laura and for Detective Sinowetski. I thank you, Father, for their insight, for their expertise, for their encouragement. God, I just thank you for the way that they handled themselves and presented themselves. I thank you, Father, for the questions that were asked. And Lord, I pray that you just continue to help us to honor and glorify you, God, to steer clear of things that are fishy, God, that you can just help us to utilize the resources you've given us in a way that brings honor and glory to you. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.